Another Sunday, another case of the Scaries to start your work week. Welcome to the newest edition of the Sunday Scaries, where we have all your gore, lore, and more, covering all the latest horror happenings, slicing open all the latest horror news, and dissecting it bit by bit, finding all those juicy innards. Pour that cup of coffee and turn on your fright light while we take you on a tour of terror. And yes, we are back here in full force. Just had a fun week on the channel. We just dropped our little interview for the Outwaters with Robbie Banfitch, which was very interesting and a lot of insight from him. So
Mhm.
we are keeping trucking here on Splattercast.
Yeah, absolutely. We are always outreaching for the best interviews we can get and trying to get ourselves a little bit more established in the horror space. I love doing these interviews. I think they're a lot of fun. And let's not forget that, I mean, at the time of recording this, it's not up, but the Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey interviews are also up as of this release. So we also have that with Scott Jeffries and Reese Frake Waterfield. I got it right that time.
There we go.
Um,
Yep.
but yeah,
And
both
it's
lots of fun.
it's like it's never it never ceases to amaze me, I guess, like, because you see the product and then being able to sit down with the directors and writers of these projects and really get that insight and see where their heads at with when they're creating something like this, because it's like looking at Blood and Honey. That's something that me and you both talked about, and um a little undecided, I think, a lot of the time when that was initially announced and everything. And then it's kind of speaking with them and finding out the method to the madness really makes me intrigued to see that film.
Oh yeah, I mean we're gonna see it this upcoming week, so we've only got like right now I think like 3 days until the film comes out. So we got our tickets secured. We're definitely gonna have a review posted, and yeah, if you haven't seen it or you're new to the channel, definitely check out those interviews. They are a lot of fun. Both of them were excellent, and yeah, I can't wait to do more. So we got more lines out into the ether, and yeah, you'll just have to wait and see who might pop up next. You never know.
Yeah, it's like always making those connections, and especially with, again, everything that we've done, even going back to the mean one.
Mhm.
All they're just such unique and very different, and it's like looking at it, this truly is, I mean, we mention it all the time on here, but especially with like these more independent films like this, it's a unique time in the horror space because there's so many different projects coming out.
Oh yeah, and like I definitely think that we picked the opportune time, the most opportune time to really reboot this and kind of go headstrong into it, because like we've been saying, we've been having a hell of a couple of years, and if the news today has anything to go by, that we've got another great couple of years on the horizon. So why don't we dive right into things here with our first story, which is Quiet Place Day One shares behind the scenes photos on its first day of production, of course. I don't think we've really had a chance to talk about A Quiet Place much. It's not really something that we've gone over to in depth on the channel since we've rebooted here, but yeah, I think it's safe to say you and I pretty big fans of that first film.
Absolutely. That was one. I think maybe we covered that on By Admission Only at one point, because I think we were doing the podcast. I can't remember 100%, but that was one that kind of caught us off guard. We just went on a whim, I think, on a Saturday or Sunday morning, actually, to go see that
Mhm.
film, and we were both blown away by it. Um, and I think it ended up being on our both of our bests of the year. I know it was on mine. I
Mhm.
thought it was either on yours or really close to being on that top 10 list. And it was something just very unique for the time, I think, and
Mhm.
unexpected. And then I think we also share the same opinion on that sequel.
Yeah, I'm not as harsh on it as I think you are, but I don't know if we've discussed it
Yeah.
nearly enough to for me to really gauge your full feelings on it. But yeah, it was definitely a little more lacking. I think the opening is really strong. I think that's the consensus to it, is that seeing day one, which is kind of what this whole film is going to be about, was really cool. But other than that, it was just kind of it really feels like a middle chapter. I think the ending is quite abrupt, and it just doesn't have the same stakes or resolution that the first film has.
Yeah, and I think that the perfect melding of that first film was kind of like you get this actiony creature feature mixed with horror, and then you also get this kind of heartfelt family story where all the characters meant something. And I think maybe that kind of got lost in translation in that scene. Where for me, I keep comparing it to The Walking Dead. It felt more Walking Dead to me. Going into it, it felt like such a different tone from the first one, so it didn't connect with me as much. I mean, like it's not a horrible film, but like going from the quality of the first one to that second one, that it just left something to be desired. But like looking at this one, looking at day one, I know we're gonna dive into the talent that is attached to this, and I think that's really what mostly intrigues us here. I really think we're gonna get that kind of in-depth storytelling with a lot of the characters.
No, I agree completely. I think what is it? Michael Saranoski is how you say his name. He's the
I
director of
believe
Pig.
so.
Yeah, he's taking this over, and we loved Pig. I think we talked about it a couple weeks ago.
Absolutely.
For I think when we were talking about Renfield, we discussed Pig and a lot of the more recent Nicolas Cage stuff. And yeah, that is one of my more favorite films of the last probably 5 years. Really came out and just surprised the hell out of me. And I know you as well. That was one that just like it's so emotional and just so well performed, well executed. I really am excited to see what this guy is going to bring to this. Because again, I think you hit the nail on the head correctly. Is that family story of that first film really, I think, carried that movie for a lot of the way. You really felt for him. And then, like I said, the second one, you're moving so much and there's so much going on that you really don't get that kind of downtime or the luxury of getting to know a lot of the characters. And, it's one of those things where it's like this film, I know, is all new characters for the most part. We have Lupita Nyong'o, who we love from Us. I mean, she's fantastic. She's in a ton of things as well. Black Panther, all that. Joseph Quinn, who's been, having his whole thing since Stranger Things season 4, and of course Alex Wolff, who is no stranger to horror. He was in Hereditary. Was he the one in Pig? I always get
He's in
those
Pig. Yep.
brothers. Yeah, I always
Yep.
get the Naked Brothers band guys confused. But yeah, no, he was in Pig. So, he's already worked with this director. So it's like this seems all going in the right direction. I'm way more excited for this now than I was previously.
Yeah. And like looking at the new talent attached to this, I mean, you just named three actors there that attached to any project with a weak director, you can say, well, at least we're going to get a great performance by, Lupita Nyong'o, Joseph Quinn, Alex Wolff, but having the director attached here, and knowing his talent, and also I think he's a co-writer on the project as well. And then
Mm-hmm.
they're kind of, carrying over the original talent in terms of being producers and writers from, that original film. So they're kind of, really treating the ideas and the elements of that original film. They're making sure that this all coincides. So it's like you're adding a lot of A-plus players to the original team. So
Mm-hmm.
looking at this really has me excited because I really feel like we're going to get those in-depth stories and we're going to get the emotional feeling that we did get from the first one. So this one has all the makings to be, kind of get you back on track with A Quiet Place, the whole franchise as a whole.
Yeah, and we don't have too long to wait. It will be coming out a little over a year from now, March 8th, 2024. So it's coming right around the corner. And then I know we're definitely still talking about getting, not talking, we are going to be getting Quiet Place Part 3 eventually as time goes on here. And yeah, we have a couple of photos there, just some cool stuff. See the director, see John Krasinski there. We do have the original writers of the first film and the second one. They have their movie 65 coming out here pretty soon, which looks pretty cool. And they got to direct that one. So we will be definitely sticking to the Quiet Place wheelhouse as this film approaches. And yeah, I definitely think that we'll be discussing at least the first two films before the day one or the third one comes out. So you'll get our
I'm
full
sure.
thoughts and opinions later on down the road. But speaking of Nic Cage alum, which you so nicely reminded me here, Longlegs. Michael Monroe joins Nicholas Cage. What the hell? Who is Nicholas Cass in Oz Perkins serial killer horror movie? So yeah, we love Michael Monroe. Obviously, her most recent film, The Watcher, made it on your top 10 of the year this past year.
Perfect.
I have still yet to see it. I am definitely going to, but I absolutely adore her in films like The Guest and It Follows. So,
Yes.
she's wonderful there. This director, he did The Blackcoat's Daughter and Hansel and Gretel. Both films I have not seen.
We're in the same
I
boat then.
kind of,
Perfect.
yeah. I heard Hansel and Gretel was pretty, but I heard Blackcoat's
Hmm.
Daughter was really good. So,
Yep.
we're just gonna have to see. But again, it's a Nicolas Cage property, so we're intrigued. And I think you did a little bit more looking into this one than I did. So, Luke, what are your thoughts on this one?
This one, as we go on the stories here and kind of decide what we're gonna pick, this one was one that I came come across and kind of suggested that we throw on here just because the talent attached here is very intriguing in terms of the performances that we're going to get. And like Dylan said, I haven't seen Gretel and Hansel or the Blackcoat's Daughter. Blackcoat's Daughter is something I think I'm going to go out of my way to see just because I have heard a lot of good things and I kind of want to compare the what this director is going to bring here, because this is a very psychological kind of story here. It kind of, reading that little synopsis, I think you can't help yourself but almost comparing it to a Silence of the Lambs or a Manhunter or something, in that kind of same realm of things. And just looking at this, like you said, Watcher was on my list for one of the best horror films of the year. Her performance in that, stupendous. I'm excited for you to see it because I think she, it's nothing. At times, she plays a really reserved character, and then as we get to closer to the end, elements there as she starts bringing in some very psychological stuff. And I think that's what she's to Longlegs as well. And then Nic Cage, I mean, we just talked about Pig. He's had a run. We've talked about Mandy, all this stuff where his performance it's a wide range of stuff. I mean, just looking at Dracula and Renfield, it's another element to the Nic Cage performance. So I'm intrigued to see what he's going to bring here. Me and Dylan had talked prior to turning on the mics here, where I could not place, and I don't think Dylan could either, in terms of if Nic Cage has ever played a serial killer, and it's going to be intriguing to see what he's going to bring here. I know prior to this, when they said that he was going to be working with Oz Perkins, he mentioned demented Geppetto. So I don't know exactly what that entails for the character that he's going to be bringing here, but definitely has my intrigue. I don't know. We did cover Silent Night, Deadly Nights, the Toy Maker. Maybe we're going to see a Pino kind of character. I don't know.
That would be a hell of a stretch. And honestly, like looking into the description that they give for this, I would honestly say please don't, because like I like I
No.
like what they're kind of pitching to me here. And like you said, very Silence of the Lambs. We have to look forward to basically Michael Monroe, and I'm just summarizing it with my own words here. She's a gifted FBI agent assigned to an unsolved case, one of Nic Cage's murders. And it seems like he murders entire families. So it's one of those things where she's kind of racing against the clock to kind of solve this case, figure out who he is, and bring him to justice before he takes the lives of another family. And yeah, I think it all sounds really good. It all sounds very interesting, very thriller, very horror. And yeah, I love seeing me an evil Nicolas Cage every once in a while.
Yeah.
So between this and Renfield, we got a pretty interesting lineup for Nic Cage performances. But I say he always keeps it interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that charisma that he brings to this, I think, is going to be very intriguing. I'm curious to see what Nic Cage we're going to get, because as you're saying, it sounds like he murders entire families. Again, that's kind of where my head goes with Manhunter, but then, the new recruit being that kind of relationship again goes Silence of the Lambs for me. So I'm curious to see
Mhm.
really what they're going to bring here. I'm more than thrilled to see what Nic Cage is going to bring because I mean he's just had a stellar run in terms of a lot of these horror films that he's been attached to, and this one seems a little more grounded. And I love me a good psychological thriller horror film. So this one for me is going to be a must see.
Couldn't agree more. But alrighty, now we got to get on to the most important story of the day.
Of course.
Yeah, I if any of you guys have been following us for a while and watched the Sunday Scaries, I had to throw this in there. I told Luke before the when this posted, I said regardless of whatever story we pick, this is in the lineup. And we're talking the Red Triangle. Yes, Johannes Roberts directing big budget shark attack horror movie. Yes, I love my shark attack horror movies. If you've been following us on Fast Food Frights, which I haven't done one in quite some time, I just haven't had the time to really sit back and watch any just throwaway horror. Most of the stuff
Trashy
I'm
horror.
watching is for the show. So it's one of those things where it's like I just haven't really had that time to sit back and watch anything. So I haven't been able to really reboot that series. But this is not that. This is exciting. I am, I guess, kind of a passive fan of Johannes Roberts' work. I enjoyed 47 meters down for what it was. I didn't think it was perfect. But I guess since it's sitting right here because I'm reorganizing some things, I do own it. But it's one of those things where I really enjoyed 47 meters down uncaged. I thought that had a much stronger concept, a little bit of something different that I hadn't seen before. And yeah, I think that he's definitely got potential. I always just was kind of on the cusp of saying if you just give the guy a little bit more money, I think he's got the creativity. And clearly, since this is going to be like either his third or fourth shark film, I think he did one other. I'm not 100% sure on that though. But this is his third shark film that I know of, that he's got a love for the stuff. So it's like he's going to definitely, hopefully, knock this out of the park. But man, I am just intrigued by this concept. Did you look into this at all? Do you know what it's about?
No, you're gonna have to wow me on this one, Dylan.
When a cruise ship, a massive floating, fully stocked resort with thousands of passengers begins to sink in the Red Triangle, a feeding frenzy begins. So, yeah, it's going to be dealing with an entire cruise ship sinking, and it's just going to be an absolute bloodbath with tons of sharks and all kinds of stuff, just ripping people to pieces. It sounds super intriguing. And the fact that they're claiming that it's a big budget, so hopefully it's going to get a theatrical release and that it's going to be something that actually we got some build up to. And I am so stoked about this because it seems like for a minute there we were getting one solid shark film a year ever since The Shallows. And then it kind of died off, obviously, with the pandemic and everything. But it seems like we might be getting back there. We got the Meg, which wasn't bad. Those are fun. We have the Meg 2 supposedly coming out this year. And then I think this will be either this year or next year. So I'm here for it.
Yeah, I know you are, Dylan. For me, this stuff, I guess the shark horror subgenre has never really been my forte. So this one for me, like, okay, so I enjoyed 47 Meters Down. I remember us having a discussion on it, and you saying, it was a really good shark film, and I went into that one, with complete hesitation. I really enjoyed it. I never got a chance to see the sequel. But I didn't know you spoke so highly of it until actually just right now.
It's
So
it's a lot stronger.
I'm intrigued to definitely see it. Like The Shallows, I enjoyed The Shallows quite a bit up until I think it was like the last 20 minutes. It lost me a little bit. I haven't seen it in a while, so maybe go back and revisit that one. But it's these shark films, they're a hard sell for me. I'll be honest, because a lot of the CGI stuff doesn't work. But I'm very intrigued to see that he's finally getting a big budget here, because I think he did well with 47 Meters Down. So I'm really intrigued to see what he's going to bring into this one. I mean, like what you pitched to me. Well, what the little blurb there of everything kind of did. I don't know. I guess for me, it seems a little Sci-Fi Channel. but like having a budget around it, and building that tension, I think you can certainly do it. I'm more in the camp of having one shark. I think that's probably just the Jaws fan in me of how well that one worked. But it's like I know you can't really replicate that too much, so you kind of have to go out into the water, so to speak, and try something new and different, and bring a different dynamic to these films. So I'm intrigued to see what they're going to bring to this one, especially this being a big budget. I'm excited to see what that CGI is going to look like. And I went to the theater to see the Meg, and that one was complete hesitation on my end, but it for me, it's not something that I go back and rewatch, but I think it was a lot of fun to go sit in the theater and watch it. So this one, he clearly knows how to tell a shark film. And then having that budget behind it, I think can only get better. So I think at the very least, going to the theater to see this, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and ultimately that's what I go to these for is fun, a couple of frightful chills. I mean, if you've been following the channel a little bit over the last couple weeks, I've been playing Death in the Water 2, which is just you're in the dark, diving, looking for treasure, looking for things, fighting off creatures and sharks and other things. And it's like this is just my bag. This is the kind of stuff that I love. And yeah, I looked into it. He only did those two shark films. Again, I like the concept of 47 meters down. I think there were a couple of moments where it was very effective. A couple things just okay to me. But I gotta say, I think the second one is definitely, after sitting with it for a little longer, a much more interesting concept. And just so if you are not familiar, it has Sissy Rose, Sistine Rose Stallone in it. So Stallone's daughter is one of the main characters. So, and
Isn't
I
Jamie
know,
Foxx's daughter?
yes, yeah, Corini. I don't know
Yeah.
what I'm saying, but yes, they have a couple of big Hollywood stars in there, or at least their kids. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to this, man. You know me, I'm an easy sell for this kind of stuff, whether it's good or bad. But I do have faith that this one is at least going to be entertaining. Yeah, does it sound a little sci-fi esque? Sure, but hey, at the end of the day, if you got a shark movie and you're putting it on the big screen, I'm there day one. Doesn't matter.
No, yeah. And for me, it's like, I don't hate the concepts of these things. I just think there is a lot of potential that's never realized. Throwing a shark with almost a psychological element in building the tension. And then, we kind of end up going into that fun route of, blood and guts and which, hey, this is a horror channel. Of course, we're all here for it. But I think, just looking at Jaws and how, again, it sucks for the shark genre because the first film out of the gate was perfection. So it's always going to be compared, even though you can't replicate Jaws. It's always going to be in the discussion here, even though you have to unmarry yourself from that. But for me, it's just like I want to see someone kind of build that tension, not verbatim, but do something to build that tension. And I think maybe he could. I mean, he's got such a background in these shark films that I think he knows what works and what doesn't work. So I'm certainly going to be intrigued to see what he's bringing here because hey, to do your third shark film. I feel like it's not just, hey, for the hell of it. I think, he still has elements that he wants to bring in film. Like you said, that first 47 meters down was an intriguing concept. And then you said the sequel was an even more intriguing concept. So I think he's going to keep, as long as he's in the shark genre, I think he's going to keep telling these different stories.
Yeah, and I think that he is a good eye for picking those stories. So, yeah, I mean, I think we've spent more than enough time on the shark topic. I'm glad we got to gush about it. I don't want to run us over too much because honestly, I could talk about it quite a bit. But yeah, I think one of these summers, when we know this is coming out or something, I will have
Shark
to have
Week.
a sit down and do some Shark Week stuff. Yeah, absolutely. But alrighty, guys, let's kind of move into our last story, kind of saving the biggest story of the week for last. I kid, I joke, not many people care about shark films, but a lot of people I know were pretty excited about this, which was Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr. returning for new I Know What You Did Last Summer sequel. And yeah, I am not familiar with the franchise. I'm familiar with it. I have not seen them. I have heard that the first one is the only one worth watching. And the sequels are kind of like the second one. It's not horrible, but it isn't great. But then I've heard that the third one was direct to DVD and really not worth the watch.
Yeah.
And yeah, from what I understand, I know that it was it's basically Scream Light in a sense, is kind of how it was pitched. This was the movie that Kevin Williamson tried to get made before Scream, and then Scream took off, and that's why this one got made. So they're very similar to each other in the sense of just the style and the era that they came out in. But I do know a lot of people have an affinity for that first film. So them kind of coming back to it with a legacy sequel is pretty exciting.
Yeah, and I believe this one's based on source material. I mean, the original I Know What You Did Last Summer is, I think. And you can definitely see the elements of that kind of being almost sister projects in a sense, where you really do get the very similar elements that Scream has, just not as well done. Yeah, I saw the original I Know What You Did Last Summer. I remember ordering it on pay-per-view way back in the day. Obviously, riding that Scream wave of a lot of these kind of teen horror films. And I mean, it's a fun movie for what it is. It's not in the same conversation as, quality of Scream, but it's a good film for a random late 90s kind of slasher film. I recommend it. I mean, the sequel, yeah, you can easily tell that's a stretch to just kind of, get as much money out of the franchise as you can. Third one, I never did see, because it again seems like, it was straight to DVD. No returning cast members, I don't think. So it was just some, random. Let's squeeze any money out of this franchise that we can get. So this news popping up to me was pretty exciting because I don't know if this is supposed to be a direct sequel and we're forgetting what the events of the part two. I
That
still
is
know what
what
you
it
did last summer.
is. It is
Okay.
going to be a direct to the first.
And so I think there's still another story to tell. I'm a huge Freddie Prinze Jr. fan, so I'm glad that he's returning. And we're gonna get more stories here. And I think also this excites me to realize that I think a lot of studios are realizing that there's a lot of horror stories to tell, and I think we're probably going to get some more. I don't know necessarily if we need legacy sequels, but I'm hoping that they maybe dust off some older properties that never really fully got their due and to try and make a go of it. So this one has me intrigued. I don't know what that quality is going to be. I think the director hasn't really done much.
She has a series, I believe. It's either a series or a film on Netflix that just came out not too long ago called Do Revenge.
Yeah,
Jennifer Caton Robinson. A lot of
and
people say that that one was pretty interesting, but again, I'm not familiar with it, so I can't
yeah.
speak on how it does for me. But yeah, no, I definitely am with you there. I think that this would be a fun one to kind of give the legacy sequel treatment, especially if you're going to get two of the original cast members back. And you're right, it is kind of it's got a fandom, but it's a lesser fandom,
Yeah.
I would say. I think a lot of hardcore horror fans really enjoy it, and I think a lot of people who grew up around that time are familiar with it and would like to see it return. But yeah, for a lot of the younger folks, it's definitely one that is easy to have passed over.
Yeah, it kind of probably got lost in the shuffle a little bit, especially the way horror struggled even, throughout the 90s, So, um, I think this is one where they probably looked at and were like, well, we can probably get something out of this, especially kind of negating what happened after the original one and kind of bringing them back to kind of tell that story. And I think that does make it more intriguing to see what Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr. will be doing, after the events of that original film, because that leaves an intriguing story to tell, I think. And that original film, I think, brings an intriguing aesthetic, I guess you would say, in terms of um, when you're telling that horror kind of slasher genre, it's hard to kind of come up with your own unique voice. And I think there are a lot of twists and turns in that original film that they brought there. And it's again, didn't really resonate, I think, with a lot of people, like general audience, but the horror fans were there for it. But I want to see what they're going to bring here. I'm glad that they're bringing back that original cast and they make a go of it. Again, I don't think there's been a lot of talent in terms of writing. I don't think Kevin Williamson's coming back, but I mean, that wouldn't be a deal breaker for me in any sense, I don't think. So I'm curious to see who they're going to attach to this thing in terms of writing. And I'm excited to get kind of a little log line to see what we're going to be bringing to this Legacy sequel.
Yeah, where everything's kind of headed. That's definitely what we're looking forward to next. I do want to point out that I know a couple other outlets reported that I don't think Freddie Prinze and Jennifer Love Hewitt are fully locked in for this yet. I think that they were
Oh,
made offers and they are negotiating, but it's basically a done deal. Is kind of the consensus, but just in case, I don't want to sit here and say they fully are and then we only get one or the other, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
but yeah, it's been about a week since this dropped, so it's one of those things where anything could have happened, things could have changed. So
Well, listen, if neither one of them are coming back or just one of them's coming back, I say throw this in the trash. I'm done with it.
okay, I feel you. But alrighty, guys,
I'm
that's gonna
kidding.
wrap us up there for that side of the news this week. Lots of interesting stories. I got to gush about sharks for a little bit, so I'm a happy boy. Talked some
And Nicolas
Quiet
Cage.
Place, Nicolas Cage, yes, alum and all, and of course a little bit of that I Know What You Did last summer. Goodness, I will have to brush up on the series before that comes out. So we'll definitely be making that
Definitely worth a
a
watch.
note. Yeah, and I know the first one is at least. It is one that I think even my dad had recommended to me growing up. But again, it's just one of those ones I couldn't tell you really why. Just never really got around to it. And maybe it's because I watched Friday the 13th too many times. I don't know what to tell you. So,
It's and I agree. Like for me, I understand because it's like if it's not Scream, I think a lot of later '90s horror is a hard sell for people. Just because the quality wasn't there, and I don't think there was that much attention to detail paid. So it's just kind of like, just throw something out there because I think horror was struggling a little bit in the late '90s, to be honest. So it's very easy that this film got passed over, and you just never really um, completed that blind spot, I guess. But we'll get there.
absolutely. But yeah, guys, I guess that's going to wrap us up for this week's edition of the Sunday Scaries. Thanks for spending your Sunday morning with us, as always, going over all the horror news. Yeah, like we said at the top, we got a couple of great interviews dropped on the channel this week with Robbie Banfitch on the Outwaters, and again, Scott Jeffries and Reese Frake Waterfield on Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, which again, we are going to be posting a review for that later this week when we see it. So definitely keep your eyes out for that. As well as we had an episode of The Last of Us drop on Friday. So we have that review up as well for episode 5 now. Yeah, episode 5.
Yes,
So yeah, that's pretty exciting there. And of
trucking
course,
along.
yes, we are. And of course, Tuesday is Valentine's Day. So obviously, we have to commit to our rite of passage here as a horror YouTube channel. There's a certain film that we have to discuss. So keep an eye out for that one. We'll be posting that up on
Valentine.
Valentine's Day. Yes. Yeah, that's the one. I mean, we'll get there, I'm sure. I mean, there's
Oh yeah.
there's there's only so many Valentine's Day horror movies. So, but yeah, other than that, guys, you can definitely keep up with us on our social media. And if you're new here, please hit that subscribe button. We are on our way to 1,000 subscribers. A lot of you guys have just shown up over the last week, so we appreciate you very much. And yeah, I guess that about wraps us up. So until next time, I'm Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.